Thank you guys for your feedback on the Squad Speak section of the podcast, or segment, I should say. It's been pretty positive. I won't say that I'll add it every single episode, but if you guys do have something to say or question to ask, it's not like I'm an expert, so my response is going to be my opinion for the most part. That I think that would be great, but we'll see how it evolves over the course of the next, I don't know, we'll say 5 to 10 episodes and see whether it stays or goes. But I'm just tinkering with some things and just trying some things out. I'm mainly just trying to incorporate listeners and people who I engage with on these various platforms into the podcast for a segment. So I want to start with a really great question from Miss Annette Wells-White. Hey, Miss Annette. Thank you so much for your question. I actually really enjoyed it. Miss White wrote, out of respect for the Queen, the Commonwealth members unanimously chose Charles as the Queen's successor to head up the Commonwealth after her demise. For all the years she's led the Commonwealth, I understand the sentiment. However, the head of the Commonwealth is not a hereditary position. It's voted upon. So do you think there is a very real possibility that Prince Harry will be voted in to head up the Commonwealth after Charles's reign is over, rather than, the average British citizen may assume that the future King of England, William, will automatically head up the Commonwealth. But as you so well put in the last podcast, the Commonwealth is comprised largely of nation states of color. Who is better suited in the current royal family to oversee the Commonwealth than Prince Harry? And if the vote did make him the head, what kind of blowback would you expect from the UK, the royal family, and of course, William? That is a very intriguing and interesting question. So thank you so much for that one. And I actually look forward to what you guys have to say on it in the comments and what your thoughts on it are. But I'll just start by saying that that's new information to me, although it is definitely correct. It is not a hereditary position. And actually, there's only ever been 2 heads of the Commonwealth, like where it's been designated as a person in both times. It was the Queen, and then before her was King George was it the 5th or the 6th? One of them, girl. But so it's not hereditary. And yes, you're right. They did pretty much say that they were going to have Charles be the next head of the Commonwealth once the Queen's reign is over and Charles takes over as King of England. But it is kind of intriguing, though, because when we look at the way people view the monarchy and how that evolves over time, especially now that and I guess I'm just thinking about how we're increasingly in an age where it is now almost just obvious that we're kind of in an oligarchy everywhere. We used to be able to just kind of pull the wool over people's eyes and say, oh, well, you can make it. You can have the American dream. Oh, you can. But it's increasingly obvious that like rich people and powerful people, well-connected people, look at the scandals we've seen just this year alone. They're pulling strings and they're controlling entire systems that affect billions of people. And then you look at, this may not have very much to do with what you're asking, but you look at how the Commonwealth, all these countries are a part of a network that was, if you could say, instituted by this one family, Yet it's still sort of like an agreement, right, between now England and these Commonwealth countries. When you look at how people have viewed the royal family and how that changes in the future, and then also how the Commonwealth views the royal family or the monarchy and the relationship they have with the monarchy, it would be interesting to really see what their opinion of that, of Harry being the head of the Commonwealth, like officially named the head of the Commonwealth, what their view on that would be. But my question is, would Harry want that title? Or if it was offered to him, would he want it? Would he take it? He's already the president of the Commonwealth. What comes with that? And And for me, it's kind of hard to understand exactly what does come with that because, again, the only two people that have had it are the crowns. And, well, we don't know what the job entails because all it is, to me, it seems like it's just a vanity title. But if it was someone who was not the crown, then people are going to look and say, well, what do we expect from this person with regard to their roles as head of the Commonwealth? And we know the Queen has a lot of faith in Harry with the job that he does with the Commonwealth in Commonwealth countries. He's the president of the Commonwealth Trust. The Commonwealth Trust is an entity dedicated to empowering the young voices of the Commonwealth, and Meghan is the vice president. But my question is, would Harry take it? So that's one. B, well, there was already a little bit of, well, there was a rumor, we should say, or some rumblings or whispers of William not being so happy that the Queen named Harry as the president of the Queen's Commonwealth Trust. And so, let's say 30 years down the road, and William is about to become the king. I don't know William, but I can't see him not taking that role for himself. Again, maybe even especially because of the vanity aspect of it. But if he wanted to give it to his brother, it would be him who gave it to his brother, I would imagine. Or maybe it's voted on. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see Harry having the role. I don't see Harry wanting the role. But even if he wanted it, it just depends on how people have viewed the royal family when that time comes. So in the next 30 or so years, how would the UK, hypothetically, the citizens react? Depends on how their view of, Harry has evolved in that time frame. That's definitely an interesting question, though. And it makes us all sort of think about the relationship that the Commonwealth has with the current royal family and how that is subject to evolve in the next 30 years. Because again, the Windsors, they got some good genes in the sense that they live a long time. Of course, they got all the protections necessary to live long lives and the best doctors and the best everything. But, the Queen, she's looking real good out here for her age, and I think Charles is going to be, he might reach 100 too. That's not for me to say. So 30 years or so from now, that's a long time. But if Charles was the one who names the successor as the crown and he chose Harry, I'm sure there would be a conversation that would be had. So Harry would be about Charles's age. You know what I mean? So, if it would be given to someone who was not the king, I would imagine or perhaps hope, if not Harry, or say he didn't want it to be Harry, that it would be someone who is like Harry currently is now, focused on the youth of the Commonwealth or young people, people with ingenuity and ideas for lifting up their own countries, someone who has a mind for that. Because, at 70 or 60 something, Harry would be in a completely different phase of his life. And we're assuming that, the Queen's going to live a few more years. Charles is going to reign for a good 25 to 30 years. Nobody dies sooner than anybody expects because, who takes the crown is according to who died before they took the crown, So that's why it's always super weird. I can't imagine what that reality must be. But where your child literally symbolizes your death. That's crazy. But that's off topic. But so I don't know. I mean, if Harry wanted it, if Charles wanted to offer it to him, or if William as king wanted to offer it to him, I think if he wanted it, he would take it, but maybe he wouldn't want it. It's just a lot up in the air that nobody really knows what the answer to that question would be. But my guess is that when the time comes to name the next head of the Commonwealth, it's probably going to be the crown, just because it was the crown by the time Charles is done being king, he will have been the third head of the Commonwealth who was also the crown. So the royal family is not really known for breaking tradition, even if it was only three. It's not like it's a tradition that goes back into the 1600s, but they're probably going to give it to Will. And I hope that he does what he is supposed to do I hope he does right by the Commonwealth, because he's going to be involved with the Commonwealth as king in so many ways. And I think just having the title as head of the Commonwealth, that'll just be the tip of the iceberg. So, but certainly Harry's relationship with the Commonwealth is probably the best out of anyone in the royal family. He and Meghan, and obviously they're introducing their son and certainly the next child to the Commonwealth, and just starting them off early with being comfortable with their relationship to the Commonwealth, whether Meghan and Harry's children have titles or not. So I think when it's all said and done, the Commonwealth certainly respects Harry, respects Meghan, whether he has that title or not. And I think 30 years down the line, that respect is only going to grow. So thank you so much for your question, Miss Annette. That was really interesting, just to even learn about that and the history of it. And it'll be interesting to see what happens when that time actually comes. Sonia Alexander said, since Meghan and Harry gave that interview, it seems like a burden has been lifted, and together they are a power couple. For years, they were abused mentally and physically. Who been abusing my Meghan and Harry physically? Because I'm not going to stand for that. No, I mean, I hope they weren't abused physically, but she continued, I often wonder if they were aware of the firestorm that surrounded them. We now have our answer and they have been suffering in private with no support all this time. They now know of the Sussex squad, and we are their ride or die 24/7. When Harry thanked the public for their support, it was heartfelt because it was the one thing they relied on. I definitely agree with you that they have suffered in silence, because they admitted that, especially Meghan, and Harry mentioned how hard it was for him to watch her suffer in silence. And I totally agree with you. I feel like since they have spoken out, since they began the litigation against these tabloid media companies or parent companies, since they've it just feels like they've decided, what, enough of this. We're done being bullied into a corner, backed into a corner. We're done with that. We're going to speak out, and we're still going to keep doing what we do. It does seem like, just from my, point of view, I'm just an observer, especially Meghan, because I mentioned this in the recent video I did. Her glow is on 1,000 though, but Harry, he's always been this charismatic person as well. But as a couple, it does, and this is not necessarily evidence, but just from my point of view, it does seem as though they don't have that mental burden anymore, where there's this cloud of uncertainty as to what they can do. Well, they're out here doing it. They're fighting. They're speaking up for themselves. They're speaking up for people who may be in their position in the future, who feel like they don't have any recourse. They're taking whatever recourse they can. And, when a weight is lifted off of you, the world looks a little bit brighter. And I know people look at them and they can't imagine, they say, gee, well, you have everything that anybody would ever want. For God's sake, you're a princess and you married a prince. It's lonely, dude. Diana, again, she said it herself. And she was dealing with, a lot, completely different issue on top of just being lonely. But sometimes the more money you have, sometimes the more famous you are, sometimes the more power it seems like you have, the lonelier you are, because your world is so much smaller. And it's not because you wanted it to be, but you just have to move differently. Every little thing you do is scrutinized. And after a while, I can imagine how lonely it can become, especially if you feel that the voice that you had is now trying to be silenced from all these different angles. But when they came out and they said, you're getting a lawsuit, and you're getting a lawsuit, and you're getting a lawsuit. And they also spoke out for themselves. It wasn't through a publicist. It wasn't through the palace. It was Meghan and Harry in an interview in that documentary regardless of your opinion of the documentary, I respect them for saying the words that they felt like they needed to say. When you get stuff off your chest, you feel a lot better. And so if that means that they glow in a different way, I wouldn't be surprised if those two things were connected. And I do feel as though they know that they have support. Certainly they have support online, and seeing so many people online that are just supporters without even a platform or a major platform supporting and debunking all of the lies that were clearly aimed and targeted at Meghan. I think they noticed that, but also it encouraged people with platforms, because so many people were hitting up others with platforms to say, look, this is what's happening. Maybe you're not noticing it yet. Maybe it's not on your radar, but could you please shed a little light on this? Or perhaps would you continue to speak out if you were like, I mentioned Chrissy Teigen earlier. She tweeted about, she's so funny. Oh my gosh. I think Kate Hopkins said something, and this was like months and months ago, but she tweeted something about Kate Hopkins being stupid and ridiculous. And that got a whole lot of retweets. So just supporting those who were using their voices to speak up on behalf of Meghan and defend her in the middle of just like the highest point of just vile coverage of Meghan, we were trying to support those who were speaking up for her. And so I think they noticed that as well. But I also respect him for saying in that statement, you may not think we need your support, but we do, and we would appreciate it. And so I think that only, caused the support for them in general to grow. So definitely, I agree with what you're saying, but let me find out somebody put their hands on Meghan or Harry and physically abuse my folks. Honey, just tell me who I need to box, and I'm going to go ahead and get in the ring. And the last one for the episode is Miss Carol Tubbs. She wrote, I believe Harry and Meghan are looking for a second home in the U.S. They can have a little more freedom and move around without the press making up lies about them. I like the idea of it, truthfully, but that's one of those things that I'll believe it when I see it, just because, I have seen a couple of articles talking about Harry and Meghan are house shopping. They're looking for a second home in California. I love the idea of it because that's where Mama D is, and, Archie is an American, and I would love for him to, grow up, at least for part of the year in America. But, I personally don't want to necessarily add to something that could just be a rumor. But again, Meghan is an American citizen, so it's not like that's not an option for her. I would hope that eventually they do, because they do need to get away from the British press, just that entity, because they're so powerful. They're not police. They don't police themselves. And, just the way that they're just so gangster about hounding people, I think they need a break from that. And again, let me just remind the girls that Harry is the sixth in line. Harry and Meghan ain't beholden to the people of England the way that Will and Kate are, for example, or Charles and Camilla. So they really don't need to be there if they didn't want to be there. But of course, Harry is someone who does have a sense of duty to his country, and he loves his country. He loves to serve his country. And, there's only so much service to England you can do in California. So, they're always going to have their home base, I feel, in England. But I think it would be awesome if they got away. And if they got away often, I think that would be great. But I wouldn't have any way to verify that because they don't tell me their business. But I love the idea of it, though. But I will keep my fingers crossed for it and hope that they eventually do that, because I think it's just nice to change your scenery in general. Well, guys, that is all I have for today. I just want to thank you guys, as always, for tuning in. Make sure you hit me up on Twitter at Sussex Squad. You can find me on Instagram at Sussexes. Thank you guys again. If you are a new patron, there we go. I really appreciate your support on Patreon. I'll include the link if you're interested in that. And don't forget to leave a rating or review on iTunes. I appreciate you guys when you do that. Once more, congratulations to SmartWorks for addressing their 200th woman and empowering their 200th woman who's going to come back and empower another woman or another group of women. And again, congrats to the Duchess of Sussex for such a wonderful project that you put together that brings women, commerce, charity, all of it together to create something so beautiful that we can all learn from and perhaps emulate in our own ways. So with that, as always, squad, thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, peace.
I'm a bad bitch. You can't kill me.